4 weeks, Israel's defense systems appeared nearly unstoppable, intercepting incoming threats with remarkable consistency. Missiles were launched repeatedly, yet the majority were stopped before they could reach their targets. The system operated with speed, precision, and an almost mechanical reliability that people began to depend on. Over time, that consistency built a sense of confidence among civilians living under constant threat. Daily life slowly adapted to the rhythm of warning sirens and defensive responses. When alarms sounded, people knew exactly how to react without hesitation. They would pause whatever they were doing and move toward safety. Then, almost instinctively, many would look up toward the sky. The expectation had become routine and predictable. Interceptors would launch upward in clean, visible arcs. Moments later, bright flashes would signal successful interceptions. The danger would seem to vanish in the air before reaching the ground. But on one night, that familiar pattern suddenly broke. It began just like any other alert, with sirens echoing across central Israel. The sound cut through the night, sharp and urgent as always. People reacted quickly, following the routine they had learned over time. Families moved toward shelters and safer areas within seconds. Many still glanced upward, expecting to see the usual defensive response. But something about the sky felt different almost immediately. The light patterns above did not behave in the way people expected. The streaks of light were unfamiliar and unsettling to watch. Instead of rising upward, they were already visible in the sky. And more importantly, they were moving downward. At first, only a few of these descending lights could be seen. Then additional streaks appeared, increasing in number rapidly. Within seconds, dozens of glowing trails filled the night sky. Each trail followed a slightly different direction, creating confusion. The predictable pattern people had grown used to was gone. There were no clear interception flashes marking success. There was no single explosion to signal control of the situation. Instead, the sky seemed to spread outward with scattered light. The visual effect was chaotic and deeply unfamiliar. It didn't resemble anything people had seen before during previous attacks. For a moment, there was uncertainty about what was happening. Some assumed it might be debris from intercepted missiles. Others thought it could be fragments falling harmlessly. But that assumption quickly proved to be wrong. The number of objects was too high to ignore. Their movement appeared coordinated rather than random. And most importantly, they were descending with purpose. The realization spread quickly among those watching the sky. These were not harmless fragments or leftover debris. These were active threats approaching the ground. What followed unfolded in a matter of seconds. Explosions began occurring across multiple areas almost simultaneously. There was no single impact point that could be identified. Instead, damage appeared in several locations at once. Fires ignited across different neighborhoods in parallel. Emergency response lines were overwhelmed with incoming calls. Reports came in rapidly from multiple directions. Some described shattered windows and broken structures. Others reported damage to buildings and infrastructure. There were also reports of injuries among civilians in open areas. The situation was fragmented and difficult to fully understand in real time. Emergency responders were forced to divide their attention immediately. Resources had to be distributed across several locations at once. This created a level of complexity not seen in previous incidents. The pattern of destruction did not match earlier attacks. This was not a contained or localized strike. It was spread out across a wide area simultaneously. The deeper issue was not just the damage itself. It was the method by which the attack was carried out. Modern missile defense systems are designed around a core principle. Each incoming threat is treated as a single target. The system tracks its trajectory with high precision. It calculates the expected impact point within seconds. Then it launches an interceptor to neutralize that threat. This process has proven effective in many scenarios. But this attack introduced a completely different dynamic. The missile did not need to survive until ground impact. It only needed to reach a certain altitude. At that point, it changed its form entirely. A single missile transformed into multiple independent threats. Dozens of smaller explosive units were released mid-air. Each of these units followed its own trajectory. This is the defining feature of cluster-type warheads. They are designed to separate and disperse over a wide area. Once separation occurs, the situation changes dramatically. There is no longer a single object to intercept. Instead, there are many smaller falling threats. Each one becomes a potential point of impact. The defense system cannot respond to them in the same way. It was not designed for that level of fragmentation. Interceptors still engaged the incoming missiles as expected. Several of the threats were successfully hit at altitude. Under normal circumstances, that would have ended the event. But this time, the sequence continued beyond interception. After the intercept, the sky filled once again with objects. These were not new missiles entering the area. They were the result of mid-air separation. Each fragment remained dangerous and capable of causing damage. From the ground, the effect was immediate and widespread. Multiple explosions occurred in rapid succession. These explosions were scattered rather than centralized. There was no single blast point to focus on. Instead, damage appeared across multiple zones simultaneously. This created confusion and increased the difficulty of response. The attack unfolded across entire areas rather than one location. That is what made this event fundamentally different. The defense system had functioned as intended. Interceptors were launched and targets were engaged. Yet the outcome still resulted in damage on the ground. This revealed a critical limitation in the system's design. Destroying the missile was no longer enough to stop the threat. The danger continued even after interception occurred. Modern defense relies heavily on predictability and tracking. It assumes a single path and a single solution. But this attack created multiple unpredictable paths at once. Smaller objects are inherently harder to track on radar systems. They produce weaker signals and appear later in the process. Their speed and dispersion reduce reaction time significantly. By the time they are detected, interception is no longer possible. The window for response effectively disappears. This shift removes the system's main advantage. It forces defenders into a reactive rather than proactive position. This scenario is often described as saturation. Too many threats appear at the same time. Each one requires attention, but resources are limited. The system becomes overwhelmed by volume alone. And that changes the balance of effectiveness. There is also a significant economic dimension to consider. Each interceptor used in defense carries a high cost. In many cases, the cost reaches hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some advanced systems can cost even more per engagement. Meanwhile, the attacking side may use comparatively cheaper methods. This creates a growing imbalance over time. The defender invests heavily but still absorbs damage. Sustaining that model becomes increasingly difficult. The strategy shifts from precision targeting to volume-based pressure. It becomes less about accuracy and more about overwhelming defenses. Even effective systems struggle under those conditions. The consequences extend beyond the immediate explosions. Not all submunitions detonate upon impact. Some remain active and unexploded in affected areas. These devices create long-term risks for civilians. They can remain hidden in debris or infrastructure. Emergency responders face additional dangers during recovery efforts. Cleanup operations become slower and more hazardous. Entire areas can remain unsafe for extended periods. This adds another layer of impact beyond the initial strike. The psychological effect on communities is also significant. Uncertainty persists even after the attack has ended. This moment represents more than a single event. It signals a shift in how modern conflicts are unfolding. Tactics are evolving faster than defensive systems can adapt. New methods are designed specifically to exploit limitations. Each phase introduces more complexity into the equation. The challenge is no longer just interception. It is adapting to rapidly changing forms of attack. And the question now is how long defenses can keep up with that evolution.